Hey guys, the Commander Casual here. I'm just doing a deck tech with you of my new Mogis God of Slaughter Attrition deck. So the whole point of the deck is to kind of outlast our opponents and use a lot of kind of little drain effects and hopefully be like of the last two, if not the winner, and just slowly bleed our opponents out. So we've got lots of kind of like regular damage effects and also some drain effects as well, just because they do the damage, and then hopefully the little bit of life gain will also help us last longer. Mogis is really good for this because when his devotion's up, you've got a 7/5 indestructible blocker or attacker, I guess, if there's no blockers on your opponent's side. And then he also either deals 2 damage to each opponent, or they during their upkeeps, or they have to sacrifice a creature. So at the very least, he's always doing something when he's on the battlefield, and because he's one of the indestructible enchantment creature Theros gods, he's really hard to remove. And because his effect doesn't seem all that ridiculous, he doesn't usually get dealt with, which is really nice. So he just kind of slowly pokes away at everybody and will help us secure the win. So for our mana base, I'll go over pretty quick. It's pretty simple. For those of you that have watched me before, you know that my mana bases are usually pretty budget. Unless I'm playing like a 5 color deck, I won't put a lot of effort into the mana base very much. So we've got a Cabal Coffers, just because we play a lot of basic swamps in the deck, and because we have an Urborg as well. So if we get the two of them together, then we generate a ton of extra mana. We've got a Command Tower and an Exotic Orchard that just give us our colors, Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to help us fetch for uh, mountains or swamps and kind of fix our colors. Temple of Malice, just because I really like the temples, but because we're only playing a 2 color deck, there's only one temple that fits in it, other than the Temple of the False God. Temple of the False God I just really like in decks. I've heard a lot of people kind of diss it because you can't use it early game, because you can't tap it unless you have 5 or more lands, but I do find it's quite good and has helped me out in most of my decks rather than been a hindrance, so I like running it. We've got a Myriad Landscape, which kind of lets us ramp and also fix our colors a little bit. I mentioned the Urborg earlier to go with the Cabal Coffers and help fix for black as well. And then we got a Valakut, just in case we end up playing a whole bunch of our mountains. Then we can try and exploit a couple Valakut triggers for a little extra damage. And then the rest is all mountains and swamps. A little bit more swamps than mountains, just because there's a little bit more black mana symbols in the deck than there are red. But yeah, still pretty basic, as I always keep my mana bases usually. So most of the deck is a lot of enchantments and stuff like that, and then there's just some general kind of function cards. I'll start off with our mana rocks, because we do have lots, because we won't have any ramp because we're not in green. So we've got a Soul Ring, Charcoal, and Fire Diamonds, Mind Stone, Rakdos Signet. The Thematic Compass isn't technically a rock, but it lets us search for more land, so it is color fixing or land fixing rather. And then it flips into Spires of Erazga, which essentially gives us Maze of Ith, which can be really helpful for an attrition style deck, which is what we have. So, and then we've got a Word Power Stone, Hedron Archive, Solemn Simulacrum. I know he's not a rock, but he is like our only actual ramp card in this deck. And then a Thran Dynamo is pretty much all of it. We've got a little bit of card draw, like Night's Whispers and Read the Bones and stuff like that. Erebos as well helps out with that. Our removal, we've got Chaos Warp, Murderous Cut, Terminate, Dreadbore. I think that's pretty much everything for that. Oh, and then our board wipes, we've got Necromantic Selection and Decree of Pain. Our big end finishers are going to be Exsanguinate to try and drain a ton of people's life, because even if we have one of our spells that or one of our enchantments that stops us from gaining life, it's still basically an each opponent takes or loses X life. And then we've got Comet Storm as well, which lets us dole out a bunch of huge damage. So those are a little bit more dramatic and will help us secure the win. We've also got Lava Ball Trap as a way to kind of get rid of target specific, like target lands that might be giving us trouble, like other Cabal Coffers or Urborgs or Maze of Iths. And then also act as kind of a smaller board wipe because it deals 4. Sepulchral Primordial and Molten Primordial just act as kind of big bombs in this deck that might help us secure the win as well. It's definitely more of like a black-red value deck that has a focus around kind of an attrition and like enchantment than like a strict kind of like pain and drain style deck. But like we got Wound Reflection, Sunburn's Invocation just makes it into all my red commander decks now because it's so good. Havoc Festival is one of the reasons I wanted to build the deck. I have this deck in or this card in paper, And it just seemed like such a goofy, hilarious, awesome card that I really wanted to run it. So players ganking life in the beginning of each player's upkeep, they lose half their life rounded up. So it just makes games faster because everybody starts to die. But the nice thing about it is this may not seem good because, hurts you too, but it's going to hit every opponent you have before it hits you because it's an upkeep trigger. So theoretically, you can exploit that a little bit more with some other kind of drain spells and hopefully kill people. But it also just, is a really cool condition to kind of put on the board. I think our single tutor's Dark Petition. I don't love running a whole bunch of tutors unless I really have to, or I'm going for like a specific combo because you do need the tutors in that instance. But Dark Petition seemed too good not to include. We've got Grey Merchant and Fanatic of Mogis to play off of our all of our devotion that we'll be getting going with all our enchantments. We've got some protection style enchantments like Lethal Vapors, which stops creatures from entering the battlefield. No Mercy, which destroys any creature that deals damage to us. Abyss, which just seemed way too cool not to play in this deck. Because ideally we'll just have like one creature out at a time and it'll probably just be Mogis. Obviously we've got a few other ones, but they're more like enter the battlefield triggers, so it doesn't really matter if they stick around. Anyway, the rest of the deck is pretty unimportant. You could pretty much build this deck however you wanted. Our main kind of like cinchers are going to be like Sulfur Vortex, so players can't gain life. Erebos stops our opponents from gaining life, which is much preferred, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. And then we've also got Forsaken Wastes, which again stops people from losing life and then drains people slowly. And then if it gets targeted, it also makes people lose 5, which is pretty awesome. And then, we just got a bunch of other stuff that's going to dissuade people from attacking us because they take damage, or regular things like Fate Unraveler or Spiteful Visions that make people draw or take damage regularly. Skull Rend, just because I really like this card as well. I know it's not the greatest card ever, but it just seemed way too fun not to run in this deck. Oh yeah, Bituminous Blast is another one of our, or Bituminous, whatever, however you pronounce that. Another removal in our deck that also has Cascade, so hopefully we can Cascade into one of these for some value. We've got to Reforge the Soul and Wheel of Fortune just in case our hand gets empty and we need to fill it. Power Siege, another Drain. Polluted Bonds. It's really like I would say check out the deck list if you're really interested in like the actual meat of the deck and all the enchantments that do all the work. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a deck built to go into the late game. And the idea behind it is like you kind of play all these little enchantments and stuff like that, and you kind of slowly deal damage to everyone, but because you're only dealing a little bit of damage to everyone, you don't get targeted. And then you just slowly work your way into the late game with everybody having taken more damage than you, ideally. And then you just slowly kind of finish everyone off. That's the goal at least. So we'll see how that goes in the rest of the games with it. Anyway, thanks for checking out the deck list or deck tech guys. The deck list will be in the description below, so check that out if you're looking for the very specific cards. I'll have everything listed out on my tapped out in there. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please like it. I guess if you disliked it, dislike it. Leave a comment based on, I guess, what you think of the deck. If you think there's any like worthy inclusions that I left out. There were a lot of cards that I did leave out just because they do kind of a similar effect, but they didn't seem quite the right style that I was going for, like Baneful Omen and stuff like that. Just didn't seem like it would do enough work in the deck for how much you have to pay it for. Uh, and yeah, check out my channel if you want to see more videos I already have, and subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.